Imagine two people buying the exact same pair of boots. One person walks into a shop and buys a $20 pair. Cheap, affordable, problem solved. The second person buys a $120 pair. At first glance, that looks ridiculous. Why spend 6 times more money on something as simple as boots? But here's the twist. 10 years later, the person who bought the cheap boots has spent far more money. How? Because those boots wore out fast. The soles broke, the leather cracked, the stitching failed. So every year, they had to buy another pair. $20 this year, $20 next year, $20 again. Meanwhile, the expensive boots still working. The idea is known as the Boots theory of economic inequality. It was popularized in the novel Men at Arms by Terry Pratchett. And the idea is simple. Being poor is expensive. Most people assume poverty means having less money, but in reality, poverty often means paying more money for the exact same things. Let's look at a few examples. Buying in bulk. You walk into a supermarket and look at 2 bottles of laundry detergent. One small bottle costs $3. A large family size bottle costs $8. But here's the catch. The big bottle contains 4 times more detergent, meaning the person who buys the large bottle pays far less per wash. So why doesn't everyone buy the big bottle? Because many people simply don't have $8 today. They only have $3 right now. So they buy the small bottle again and again and again. And over time, they end up paying more overall. Let's also consider transportation. Imagine someone who can't afford a car. Every day, they take taxis, buses, or ride-hailing services. Individually, each trip doesn't seem expensive, but over months and years, those daily costs pile up. Meanwhile, someone who could afford a car upfront might spend less over time. Insurance aside, owning the asset often becomes cheaper than constantly running transportation. Let's look at banking fees. In many countries, people without enough money in their bank accounts get hit with overdraft charges. Miss a payment, fee. Balance drops too low, another fee. Need cash from an ATM outside your network, fee again. Ironically, people with less money are often the ones paying the most banking penalties. Meanwhile, wealthier customers often qualify for premium accounts with zero charges. Credit and interest. The biggest example is borrowing money. People with strong credit scores can borrow money at very low interest rates. But people with poor credits, they often pay much higher interest, sometimes dramatically higher. For example, a wealthy borrower might get a loan at 5% interest. A struggling borrower might face 20% or even 30% interest, meaning the same loan becomes more expensive depending on who you are. And here is the poverty trap. These small disadvantages stack up. Higher prices, more fees, lower quality goods that need replacing. Over time, it creates what economists call a poverty trap. A system where escaping poverty becomes harder because the cost of simply living is higher, not necessarily because someone makes worse decisions, but because they have fewer options. A simple thought experiment. Imagine you only have $20 left until next week. You need shoes for work. Your options: a durable $120 pair that lasts 5 years, or a $20 pair that lasts 6 months. Which one can you realistically buy? Exactly. Sometimes people choose the cheaper option not because it's smarter, but because it's the only option available today. And here's the bigger lesson. This doesn't mean expensive things are always better. And it doesn't mean every cheap purchase is bad. But it reveals something powerful about how money works. Wealth often buys efficiency. The ability to pay upfront, the ability to avoid fees, the ability to choose long-term value instead of short-term survival. And our final thoughts. The next time you see someone buying the cheaper option, remember this. Sometimes the most expensive decisions in life are the ones people make because they have no choice. And sometimes being poor isn't just about having less money, it's about paying more for everything.